we don't have that many sets that unblocks top pairs that we check back the turn. So we're basically at the top of our range where ace queen we have to defend. And I just told him to put the top of the range in the bin because not enough of people just attacks these spots.
We're back with part 2. Now it's time for Danny and myself to go over some hands. Really looking forward to see what he has to say on the hands that I've prepared. And you can see how a super high roller is approaching these spots. And of course, I didn't pick easy spots. I picked some spots where I had to struggle, or I struggled a lot. And really interesting to see what he has to say. So we're having here an online high roller. And we start with ace-2 suited. First things first, would you open raise here?
I think it's still a clear raise. You know, ace-2 suited from hijack range.
Yeah.
Right. I could mix between a couple of strategies, though. Like I might put some limps in there sometimes as well.
All right, fair enough. I'm basically playing a raise-only strategy, but it depends on how you construct your range and what you feel confident with. When you limp, you can play more hands. That's huge advantage, right?
Yeah.
You can limp hands that maybe something like Jack 8, Jack 9 suited that you would, Jack 9 suited you would still open regardless, but like, let's say some suited connectors that you can't open with this deck depth.
Exactly.
So we open it up. And big blind calls, and flop comes Jack 9-4 suited. He checks to us. What will your game plan here?
My personal approach would just be a check back. I personally don't. You know, I think we have enough hands that can see bets on this board. If we have a backdoor spades, I would lean towards more betting. But when we have
spades or backdoor clubs,
yes, backdoor spade. Like if there was, imagine like 4 of spades on the flop.
Okay.
Yes,
I see.
Or if like ace-2 of hearts, I might lean towards betting, but ace-2 of spades, I would just be probably basically a give up here. And also, we have to be aware of like the 5. Is this the final table or no?
No. This is not a final
this
table.
Is okay.
It's like somewhere middling stage. There's quite some chips in play.
I think there are different players with different approach. Some would say, okay, you do not have backdoor draws, so obviously it's not a good enough hand to continue on the turn, so you would prefer to be betting. Whereas I personally would rather have a backdoor draw to be betting.
Yeah. I see your points. I think both options are fine. I went for the bet because it's still the big blind. You know, he has off-suited kings, off-suited queens, something like 7-6 that we fold out. We even fold out some better ace highs, which I think is pretty good. Something like ace 7 in diamonds, you know, these sort of hands. So yeah, I went ahead and I bet very small. Just I think it's 15% pot. So very, very small. I think it's 20%. Sorry. So I think it can never be, and this is where I try to simplify for myself, you know, when you're not really sure whether you can bet here or not. But also if you think about my overall range, it really, I have a lot of ace jacks, king jack, queen jacks, over pairs, all my king queens, queen tens, all my flush draws, nut flush draws can stack off here if they have an overcard and gut shot. And I think mixing in my weakest ace X in betting here allows me to not getting exploited by at all. Yeah. So, but I see your points as well. I think it's also very playable. But if you play against someone who's very aggressive in attacking c-bets a lot, he knows you're still going to have a lot of ace-highs betting here. It can be quite dicey. He calls, and the turn is a 4. Would you expect some leads here from Villain?
I think so, especially if there's just 15% on the flop. You know, I think he definitely continues basically any pairs on the flop. He can lead draws on the turn. And it forces out to fold some hands straight away, you know, where we definitely have, for example, like you said, we have ace highs where we just force to fold on the turn pretty much.
Yeah. I think check back is pretty standard, right?
Yeah.
What do you think about a small bet just to protect against, let's say, hands? Maybe not too small, just, you know, 2.5, 3 big blinds against some, let's say, he can have something like king 8 in hearts, you know, like or king 8 with the king and clubs. You can have like queen 8, 7 8, all these sort of hands that still have a lot of equity that we might get out. We still get some value from queen 10s, king 10s, king queens at call again. Then we can check it down on the river, on good rivers. What do you think? Do you think it's a valid strategy here?
I like it. It's just it's a hand that if your opponent plays a mixed strategy where they can mix in some, instead of not leading, he can mix in some check raises on the turn, and we're now taking a hand where we can happily take to showdown, and we're not doing that,
Yeah, fair enough. I see your point. But I think, again, also DVs are very similar, very close. I think, and this is something that I have discovered now as well very often, that players struggle a lot. Just sometimes accept the fact that multiple options are possible. Very often DVs are very so similar, checking and betting, and then what people do is they spend hours in the lab in order to determine what is a high EV. But at the end, they figure out, okay, it is 0.01 higher in EV. That's stupid. You also got to be studying effectively. And here, I think check has a high EV, betting has a high EV in terms of the equity. Yes, he has a lot.
But we have to think about future EV as well. Where the EV of betting and checking, it's the current EV right now. But the fact that you don't lose any chips in your current tournament right now has future EV as well.
Of course. Always keep in mind what's the situation. That's a very valid point. And I think a lot of actually players that come from cash games struggle with this approach. This. I would say see it as a battlefield, and your chips are soldiers, and you want to make sure you invest, you send your soldiers into a war that they can win, and you have to keep an eye on your soldiers, and try to lose as little as possible, of course. And the future game is very important, that you also always have enough soldiers in future wars that you can engage in. If we take an analogy, because I think a lot of players are just way too careless with their chips, with their big blinds, and it's great to hear, because you're an excellent tournament player, and you mentioned that right away, and something you should definitely be in your repertoire of tournament poker. However, it goes check, and the river's an ace, and he checks to us again. And what are we doing here?
I think it's a clear value bet where we probably don't have that many bluffs in our range. I think we mix between like some draws, check back on the turn. We don't always continue our draws on the turn. We can check and probably bet on the river, but it's a hand. It's definitely a card that we probably be stabbing a lot on the river, because it favors our range compared to the big blinds. So I think the big blind still has to defend accordingly, not only just be like, oh, the river's an ace, I can just happily check for now.
Yeah. What hands would you be bluffing with?
It's quite interesting, because personally, there's a lot of... I would still be... I think hands like King Queen, where I don't always bet the turn, although I have a pretty strong draw. I have a good shot, I have 2 overs. I don't know, I may or may not block some flush draws on the flop. So, but on the river, King High is close to probably winning on the river, that we don't have to bluff. King Queen, it's pretty close. I'd definitely be bluffing. I might not bet hands like Queen 10 suited, 10-8 suited on the if we have Queen 10-8 suited even. Yeah. We have we have 10-8 suited, so Queen 10 suited, 10-8 suited, those kind of hands I would definitely bluff the river, where I don't bet the turn, because I don't want to check raise and not realize my equity. Yeah. I'm worried of getting check raise on the turn and not realizing my equity on the turn. So I would definitely be bluffing those on the river.
I think I would also play exactly like this, check some. It is, of course, player dependent. The more passive my opponent is, the more I'm leaning towards betting Queen 10 and 10-8.
Yeah.
But the more aggressive it is, if he starts check shoving his combo draws or draws on the turn, I don't want to be betting 10-8 or Queen 10 with a high frequency. Yeah. So, but against
hands like maybe even 7-8 of hearts, I'm not sure if we have stuff. I personally probably still, it's close. I probably have half. Yeah. 7-8 of hearts. So
what about some random give ups, like let's say King 8s and King 7 suited to fold out better King highs?
Yeah, like I said, I think king high is super close with, especially when you have like, okay, king seven blocks some sort of draws, but it's close. Like king high, I'm not sure if I'm always bluffing king high on the river. I'm certainly not bluffing any pairs, So
yeah, of course. It's then queen eights, 7/8 if we have 10/8, queen tens.
Yes. And I would go for a small bet on the river as well.
Okay. Like what would be your sizing?
I would probably bet like 35%, 30 to 40% on the river, where I would be betting this size with my bluffs and with my values on the river. Because I want to make Sorry?
Go ahead, sorry.
Yeah. That is how I would size my river.
And what would you do against the race if you bet 1/3? Where you basically induce the race?
It's typically not a river that we get raised that often, I think, even with 1/3. Like, okay, our range is I would still say is not capped, because we can check back like hands like still jacks on the turn, where we don't have aces, because aces is almost always a bet on the turn, but I would typically think we don't get check raised enough on the river to have to worry about that too much.
So what do you do if you get check raised? Because especially in life, and I picked the hand for a reason, because not everything is
okay. Let's say if we do get check raised, I would say the spot that in general we get under check raised so often that we could just happily.
Because this is what happened here, and I think it's easily something that can happen live, where people are not playing according to GTO. They're supposed to lead a lot on the turn, and you more often end up in the game tree where you face a lead on the turn, and then you go from there. Here, Villain decided to check raise on the river, where, as you said, it should not happen that often, because he's supposed to be leading a lot of 4x on the turn. Not every 4x, but with a very high frequency. So
the point is, I don't know about you, Ben, but I personally don't even bet that if we ever have a jack that checks on the turn, okay, I'm not betting the jack on the river.
No, me neither, of course.
Okay, so therefore on the river, even though we're using that sizing, our range is actually just ace x plus or a bluff.
Or some traps, like jacks, nines, or maybe not.
Yes,
jacks, but jacks.
Yes, so therefore ace x plus, right? Yeah, so therefore our range is actually pretty strong. So I'm certain that it's a spot that people under attack. So versus that, especially in the in the online high rollers, I have no idea, but in the live scene, I'm sure in the tendency that I play in, people are definitely under bluffing, and I would just happily fold here.
Yeah, I didn't. I was just not able to let go of it, because to me it appeared that he would lead a lot of 4x, and also ace is not a hand that not a card where I think he should have some leads, some small block bets. For sure, even with a jack, very often, like when the pot is not that big, you can still lead the jack. We still have a lot of king queens, king tens in our range. We have pocket tens, pocket eights, and we also have to bluff catch some of those. And we also might check back some ace highs on the flop. We keep bearing, so it's not that we're always going to have an ace. And it's more that we have to defend, or we have to start defending some jack x and 9x, pocket tens, pocket queens. Queens we beat, but it's so not sure how people approach it with leading on the rivers, but I would expect the population not to be leading that much here on the river. So I would assume that he's going to have a lot of 10-8s and queen 10s in his range, which he could potentially bluff lead, but I think population won't. So that's why I leveled myself into, but what is he doing with all his queen 10s and 10-8s and 7-8s and busted flush draws, And I ended up leveling myself, and of course he just has the 4. And I think it just serves as an example that this is just a spot when your range, as you mentioned, and it's good that you pointed it out, when you have ace x and better, people barely try to bluff you off an ace x top pair. So, and the way I approach it here is I'm going to fold my ace 8, I'm going to fold my ace 10, ace 7, blocking 10 7s, 10 8s, and ace deuce, ace 5 are probably ace, if you want to bluff catch some ace 6, it's going to be ace deuce to ace 5.
For sure, I agree with that.
So if I have ace 8, I happily bet fold. If I have ace king, I might expect, he value raises maybe in the ace queen that he didn't reshove pre, or an ace 10, or you never know what people are capable of. So I don't fold an ace king, but I probably would start folding ace queen, ace 10, ace 8 here very, very frequent, pretty much always. And
I think it's very reasonable.
Yeah, I think as an exploit, even folding any ace against population, especially live, is gonna just boost your win rate so much.
Yeah.
Just letting go. Just this capability. Hey, all right, they just have it. Let's let it go. But I was
what was the hand? I'm trying to think. I think I came across a hand the other day where one of my good friends showed me a hand. I mean, it's hard to just quickly, give you all the information out. But basically, it was a 3-bet pot, and we had ace queen off. We raise from late. It goes call. Big blind 3-bets. It comes ace jack X to the flush draw. Goes c-bet call. Turn brick check. Turn 7, I think, goes check, and then river checks, and river comes an ace, and obviously we value bet our trips on the river. And my friend got shoved on, and he calls, and he's basically saying, okay, we don't have that many sets that unblocks top pairs that we check back the turn. So we're basically at the top of our range where ace queen we have to defend. And I just told him to put the top of the range in the bin, because not enough of people just attach these spots where obviously when you bet the river you're paralyzed. So his range, when he free bets out of the big blind, he has actually a lot of hands that can be a good hero call that doesn't need to be turned into bluffs. So therefore,
good point.
He actually don't have many bluffs here, so you can just put your trips in.
Queens, queens would be excellent to check shove on the river, right?
Yeah, would be crazy. But I mean, the thing is, when the sizing that he went for on the river wasn't even polarized when he bet the trips, so queens could actually still be some sort of a call in case the villain value bets like king jack suited there,
Yeah.
So I don't think people even check turning queens in the bluff.
Yeah, that's I love this one. I think I'm gonna print it out and put it on my wall. Put your bin, put your top of the range in the bin. That's pretty good. I love this one. So yeah, I had the king 4. I think this spot serves very well as illustration that don't hero call in these spots. Another spot we had against Bit Too Easy. I think you know him as well from online.
Luke Reeves.
He's a cash game player, very good in cash games, also playing more tournaments, or he has a cash game background. So we opened 10-9 suited to 2 big blinds. We're both 40 big blinds. He has 45 big blinds. Stage is not relevant here. He 3-bets from the small blind, and we have an easy call with 10-9 suited. Correct me if I'm wrong. Sometimes the obvious are actually, or the obvious ones are not always the obvious ones. Flopper comes king 9-8. And he c-bets, we call. I think everything else would be quite absurd. And then he shoves the turn. And I'm gonna share with you what problem I have and how can we counter them. So of course we don't have ace king. We only have king queen off and maybe some king jack off with a low frequency. But we basically only have the king x suited hands, like king 10, king jack, maybe some king 9 suited. We even shove some 9s and 8s pre within these positions here. Yes, okay, we probably have some 6-7 suited, but we're also going to have a bunch of queen jack suited, jack 10 suited that's floating, something like ace jack, ace 10 in spades and diamonds that is floating. We have 10-9, jack 9 suited, ace 9 suited. We have 10-8 suited, ace 8 suited, 7-8 suited. And I've felt like he's actually printing quite a lot of money here with his turn jam if he has. I mean, he has to shove some jack 10s and queen jacks here for sure, and queen 10s. That he's 3-betting pre. So I felt like if I only call a king, I'm getting very heavily exploited here. So I was thinking, okay, which 9x we also want to start defending here? And I would like to hear your input as well. What do you think? How, especially 3-bet pots, do you see it often being bluffed? Do you think it's always a sign of strength and we can even overfold?
Am I just a nit or am I folding here again, I might just be a nit and I'm just folding here once again,
Okay.
Like you said, we have 4 combos of 6-7 suited here. We have 3 combos of King Jack suited, King Queen suited. We have enough combos of like King Queen off, King Jack off, King 10 suited, Ace 9 suited. Ace 9. Are you 4-bet? You're not 4-bet jamming Ace 9 suited, right?
No.
Yeah. I mean, even Ace 8 suited plays better than 10-9 off here, 10-9 suited here, just because he's never jamming 9x, you know?
Yeah.
But Ace 8, like, now, I think having a 10 in a hand is not very good.
Yeah.
You know, obviously now his bluffs that we unblock, it's like hands like Queen Jack suited. I'm not sure if he's like air jamming hands like Ace Jack, Ace Queen, where he just blocks the top pair.
Yeah,
so
8-7 would be also pretty sexy jam in his shoes.
Yes, 8-7 is a good block.
Where he folds out some 9x, protects against all sorts of Queen Jack, Jack 10s, blocks King 8,
and has a lot of equity against just King X. Just because we're capped to almost basically no sets, we have.
Yeah,
it blocks. It blocks 2 pair.
He blocks 9-8 suited.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I folded, but I realized, and I think it's probably also something that everyone who's watching here is, and that's why you also see these crazy hero calls in high rollers is you have to try to neutralize the EV of your opponent's bluffs, and especially bit too easy. He grinds cash game for years in the highest stakes possible. He will have enough bluffs here. So you got to make the call with Ace 9 and Ace 8 here. You cannot just call King X because then he's printing with his bluffs, and you cannot just argue and say, oh, but I want to save my tournament life. Yeah, well, okay, then save your tournament life. But if it's a profitable call, you're going to end up making more money than the fold. Or if you fold, you allow a bit too easy to make way too much money with his bluffs. And that's where GTO comes into play, that you try to neutralize each other's EVs for their bluffs. And sometimes you got to flick in the...
So you agree that Ace 9 is a better call, right?
I like the input with the Ace 8. I think that's much better than 10-9 here, actually. Probably calling our King X, calling our Ace 9 and Ace 8, and then folding everything else. Because we only got to be... we have to defend around 55% of our range. 45. He's 40 to 45% of our range here. And if you just, remember, you still have some ace high floats, you have Queen Jack suited, Jack 10 suited that can't call, you have a lot of 9x, you only call 9x, you have some 8x that you fold. So, so I ended up folding. I was just curious how you approach these spots when you have a lot of ace high second pairs. So really happy to see that you share the same opinion. And unfortunately, we never know what he has.
Maybe I'll send him a message later.
But I think it's Ace King, King Queen, pocket 9s, pocket 8s, Jack 10 suited, Queen Jack, Queen 10 suited, 8-7 suited maybe 6-5 suited. But I think he's not 3-betting those hands. It's not what he's supposed to be 3-betting with the stack steps. It's going to be very like King 10, King Jack off, maybe Ace 10 off, like more condensed around making strong pairs instead of suited connectors.
I mean, I'm unaware of. Luke is obviously a very, very good poker player, but for me, someone that plays cash game, has a cash game background, and I understand. I don't know about online, but for live, he definitely doesn't participate as many tournaments as some of the good tournament regs. And I'm not saying he's not good, but maybe at these spots and like at these stack depths, he may also be under 3-betting as well.
Okay. Yeah, well,
but I don't know. Maybe he grinds a lot like high rollers online. I have no idea.
Online actually tournaments. I see him every single Sunday.
This was something that's probably wrong then.
He definitely plays a lot online. That's already it. 2 hands, and really appreciate your input. I think
I'm sorry if it's not more valuable.
Dude, that's insane. People are gonna love it. Believe me. It's always good.
They're gonna compare to pads and.
It's all good. Don't worry too much. You're such a humble guy. It's you're too good for this world. And thank you so much. And pretty sure we're gonna see each other soon somewhere.
Yep, definitely.
Guys, if you have any questions in the comments, let us know how we would play the hand, how you perceive the river raising range of villain in the first hand. Do you think on this spot here in the 3-bet pot on the turn there's going to be a lot of bluffs showing up? You think it's going to be under bluffed? Should we even fold all 9x? Don't we need to worry? And I think here's the thing. On low stakes, against most players, I would just fold even my ace-9. It's going to be, especially if you run deep. If you run deep,
for sure,
you should not think about GTO. But sometimes we play against better opponents or opponents that are good enough to be bluffing here. And then we should also think about what we need to call from our weaker part that in GTO have to be called, and not just lay down, or fold everything that is not a calling hand just because it's not a top pair. Sometimes you also got to be flicking in the cards with second pairs, and even sometimes with third pairs if you have good blockers. It's all a game about likelihood, odds, and chances, and all things considered make up or result in a certain EV. And if this EV shows a positive sign, then we have to go for it. Don't be attached to your hand. It's not about absolute hand strength. Just because it's 3-bet pot and second pair doesn't mean it's a fold. Think about equities, and against the range he's shoving on the turn, we might get the right equity. Danny, thank you so much. It's going to be Christmas soon. How are you going to spend Christmas?
I actually have no idea yet.
No idea? Family?
I have no idea yet.
With family, I guess?
I feel like I'll still be playing a lot of poker because the cash games has been booming lately, and typically Asians don't really celebrate Christmas too much.
I see.
Yeah.
Everywhere
will be open, and it'll be busy.
I see. The grinder even throughout Christmas.
Yes.
If you still celebrate a bit of Christmas with your family, I wish you happy Christmas. Also from the Raise Your Edge community, pretty sure we appreciate everything that you're doing. Thanks for taking the time.
I appreciate it.
And
I appreciate it. You too, Ben.
See you in 2020. Yep.